the next question, and one that I hear quite a lot, is how do I buy an investment property with a limited budget? So there are a couple of different things that you can do. There are options. I know that it seems pretty daunting, but I promise you that we will help you out. The first thing that you can do is
Hey guys, welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. It's Kayla here from the Niagara Region. You're used to seeing me doing some market updates, but today we're doing things a little bit different. I have Sloane here, who is an integral part of our Smith Co Realty Team. So she's been working with investors as well, and she's recently been working with some first-time investors. So we reached out to them to get some questions, and I'll hand it over to Sloane.
Hey guys, yeah, I'm super excited to be here and get to speak with you guys about some of my experiences working with first-time investors. I actually reached out to some of the first-time investors that I had worked with in the past and got them to compile a list of questions that they had for me when they were first going through it. So I'm super excited to share it with you guys, and hopefully I can help you out. All right, so let's start off with question number one. What are the benefits of buying in different neighborhoods? So for example, A, B, C, and D, A being the nicest neighborhood in the city, D being the maybe not so nicest neighborhood in the city. There are definitely benefits to both. If you're buying in, say, an A or B plus neighborhood, obviously your demographic is going to probably be a little bit different than a C or a D neighborhood. So in buying something in an A neighborhood, you might get more rent, for example, than getting something in a D neighborhood, but you do have to remember that the prices are also going to differ as well. So while something might be much more expensive to purchase in an A neighborhood, something's going to be less expensive in a D neighborhood, so it does kind of start to even out a little bit. I find that a lot of people kind of tend to get scared away a little bit when I say that something's like a B minus or a C, but I don't think that you necessarily should be. Again, as I said, you are going to get it for a bit of a cheaper price, most likely, but also these tend to be kind of the best places that turn around eventually. And typically, if you buy something in, say, a C neighborhood, but you make it into an A property, you can probably get a B tenant in there, which is great anyway. So it's always good to look in all of the neighborhoods. I mean, I know a lot of times people have specific ones to look at, but I always say just venture out, because you could end up finding something that works perfectly for you in a neighborhood that you weren't necessarily considering at first. Okay, so question number two. What are you doing to give your first-time investors an advantage? So I think that it's really important to have a realtor who is constantly checking into the market. Obviously, auto emails are great, but I also find that it's awesome when I go in daily, multiple times a day, and check it myself. So I'm actually going to give an example of something that recently happened. I had a first-time investor who had not the biggest budget, so I was looking with them for a little while. I kept checking back on properties that had been sitting on the market for a while, and that's just because sometimes when things are sitting, you can sneak in lower offers and actually get to negotiate a little bit, rather than if something's holding offers and looking at 7 offers at a time, you don't quite get that advantage. Anyway, so I started going back and looking and seeing what had been on the market for a while. There was one property that hadn't sold. It was a great property, but it was tenanted. The tenant that was in it was missing rental payments, was not paying market rent, so that's why the property arguably was sitting, and it was also priced lower than where it should have been. I ended up looking back about a month later, just in my daily reviews, and I noticed that it actually at that time was vacant, which was awesome for me because it hadn't been updated. It had still been sitting there for 2 months' time. So we actually were able to get in the property. It was vacant now. We actually negotiated as well and got it under asking price, which was already undervalued because it had been sitting for so long. And now my clients get a great property at a great price, and they get to choose their own tenant, and it's going to cash flow. So yeah, that's just one example of something that I can do on my end to help you and give you an advantage in a sale. Can you still get an offer accepted with conditions? So this is a big one, especially in a market as hot as this one. So you can. Conditions obviously are a little bit harder when you're up against 10 other offers on offer day, but for example, the example that I just talked about where we had gotten something that was sitting for a while, we actually got 2 conditions in there because it had been sitting for a while, so we were kind of in the advantage, whereas the seller not so much. So yes, you still can put conditions in. A big one is an inspection condition that I know a lot of investors are really worried about. And something that you can do as well, instead of putting a condition into your offer when you're putting in an offer, you can do something called a pre-inspection. So if we go and see the house and you love it and you want to put in an offer, but you don't feel comfortable putting it in without having an inspection, I can bring an inspector through prior to and get them to take a look at it, give you the inspection. If all is well, then we can go ahead and put in a firm offer for you and give you the best chance that you can get. Okay, so question number 4, can I put in an offer prior to offer presentation? So an offer presentation is when somebody is holding off looking at all of the offers until a certain date. That's when you start to get into multiple offers and competing with 5 or 7 or 12 or however many people bring an offer. Sometimes you can bring an offer prior to that date. So generally on a listing, it will tell me the offer day, so when they're looking at offers, and generally it will say whether or not they're taking a look at offers prior to that. A lot of people call it a bully offer, we call it a preemptive offer, it's the same thing. One of the things that I have learned is basically not listen to the listings always, and to always ask. I have actually been successful in putting in a preemptive offer, even when they said that they weren't taking one. Sometimes people just have a price, and if you can give it to them, then you can avoid the whole offer presentation. So it's worked out in the past for me, and maybe it will for you in the future as well. Next question is, are there any issues with buying a house that is tenanted? So there can be. If a house is tenanted, obviously you run into the risk of having a tenant that is maybe not so great, just in that maybe they are behind on rent payments or don't take very good care of the property, just things like that. So when it comes to tenanted properties, that is another thing that I will always call the agent and ask, and generally they'll be pretty truthful and good about it, and let me know what kind of a tenant they are. That being said, a property that's tenanted can also work in your advantage, because oftentimes people will get a little bit scared away from a property if it says that it's tenanted, but I have had great success in properties that are tenanted with almost market rent or market rent, and if you're getting a good tenant along with it, then honestly it just saves you the trouble of having to buy it and rent it out yourself. So I do think that it's worth a look. It shouldn't be automatically avoided because it really just depends on the situation. The next question is, once your offer is accepted, how many viewings do I get? And can I bring contractors through for quotes to line up a contractor immediately after close? So you will always get viewings. I'll always write that in the offer for you. The amount of viewings that you get is totally up to you, and it just depends on how long your closing is, how far away it is. If you're closing in a month, then I might put 2 in there just because you can't go 7 times when you're closing in a month, but if it's a longer closing, you can put 4 or 5, or really it's up to you, and that's something that we'll discuss prior to putting in the offer. As far as going through with a contractor, yes, you can absolutely do that. So in our offers, what we do is we'll actually adjust the viewing clause, and we'll put in there that not only can you come through and view the property, but you can also bring through other professionals as well, and that way you can kind of get a jump start on what you want to do once the property closes and you can get your renos done, knowing how much you have to put towards the renovation cost. Moving on to the next question, how long, once my property is ready, does it take to get rented? So this question, I mean, there's no real definite answer for it. A property could get rented in a week, a property could get rented in a month. It just depends on what you're looking for and who applies, what area you're in, stuff like that. Generally, if it is priced well, which obviously we would help you out with, it can be rented within the month, which is great because obviously you're not carrying all your costs. One thing to note about the Niagara region is that there's about a 2% vacancy rate, which means that there aren't a lot of vacant units. So as long as you're doing a good job, I'm doing a good job of pricing it well and advertising it for you, we should be able to get it rented for you pretty quickly. The next question, and one that I hear quite a lot, is how do I buy an investment property with a limited budget? So there are a couple of different things that you can do. There are options. I know that it seems pretty daunting, but I promise you that we will help you out. The first thing that you can do is expand your search area. So if you're finding that you're getting priced out of where you're currently looking, investors will start to look at different neighborhoods, look at different cities. There are always investment opportunities everywhere. We just have to find them. A lot of people think that you have to invest in your own neighborhood when that's not necessarily the case. There are a lot of great cities and options to invest in. I'm from the Hamilton area, but I drive to the Niagara area all the time. There are great opportunities here. There are great opportunities there. I drive to Guelph, Burlington. Really, we can drive to wherever it is that suits your needs. And even if it's further away, a couple of hours away, I can always refer you out. So don't feel like you have to be investing within arm's reach to get something that you want. Another thing that you can do if you have a limited budget is look into alternative lending. If you can't get lending with an A lender, you can do a joint venture. So nobody's saying that you have to do this alone. You can purchase something with a friend, you can purchase something with family member, you can purchase something with 5 friends. So however you can make it work, you can make it work. If you don't quite have enough for a 20% down payment, you can also try something called house hacking. And what that is you purchase something that can have an accessory dwelling in it, and you live in one unit while renting out the other. And that way, because it's going to be your primary residence, you only need a 5% down payment. So there are definitely options for you. And again, it's just about sitting down with us and talking through it with us and seeing what option works best for you. One final piece of advice for all of you first-time investors out there: don't back yourself into a corner and think that one way is the best way or the only way. Just because it worked for your friend or for your neighbor doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work best for you. So one of the first things that we do with any investors that come our way is we'll sit down or we'll have a call with them and see what market area might work best for you, what your budget is, what your strategy may be looking like at the beginning or what it may end up looking like at the end. Don't feel like you have to stick to one way of thinking, a multi-unit or a condo or house hacking, and stick with it forever. We can change and we can adjust as we're going through it. It's a process, but if you stick with it, it will happen, and it's best to just get in the market.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. We're super excited to share this information with you. All of our information is below to give us a follow on social. My Instagram's Agent Kayla S.
And I'm realtor.sloane.
Give us a follow, and also our information to set up a call is below as well. We're super excited for the video, and we're super excited to work with you.
Thanks, guys.